Welcome to Centre Court with thanks to OMF. Kick back and relax with an adjustable bed from Australia designed and owned OMF. Watch sport your way. And of course, Cobram Estate, Australia's most awarded extra virgin olive oil, grown, harvested and first cold pressed in northern Victoria. Welcome to Centre Court. I'm Bianca Chatfield and Maddie Brown is alongside me as well. What a season it has been. There is only one round left to go and absolutely no surprises at all, Mads. We still don't know what's happening.
We don't know anything.
It all comes down to round 14. So let's take a look what happened in round 13 with our OMF overview. Watch sport your way. Some pretty interesting results, and it all started off with the Giants and the Mavericks. The Mavericks again got up by one, keeping their finals hopes alive, and then the Lightning absolutely smacked their crosstown rivals in the Queensland Firebirds. The Vixens and the Fever. Now that game was an interesting battle, wasn't it? The Fever getting up by one, and then the Thunderbirds having a pretty convincing win over the New South Wales Swifts. And if we look at the ladder right now, of course, Thunderbirds sit out on top, but the Vixens and Fever all on equal points in that top three. The Lightning and Mavericks equal points in that fourth and fifth position. And I think we can now rule out Firebirds, Swifts and Giants. Am I right, Maddie?
Absolutely, you are. I mean, it all comes down to this last round. Thunderbirds have full control. If they win, then they'll stay there. Vixens and Fever. Now, it all comes down to this magical number of 12, apparently. So they either need to Fever to jump. Vixens either need to win by 12 or more or lose by 12 or less.
Okay.
And obviously, Thunderbirds need to lose. So, I mean, there's a lot going on. Same with the Lightning and Mavs. It might just come down to percentage. Lightning sitting in the hot seat. But it's interesting to see how these last games obviously unfold, because the Lightning are probably going to be in the best position to go, you know what, we've got all the answers in front of us and now we know exactly what we need to do to make that top four.
And speaking of the Sunshine Coast Lightning, we now get to welcome in Liz Watson, the new recruit up there on the sunny coast. Liz, thanks for joining us on Centre Court.
Thank you.
When you hear us talk about how finals can all work out, have you got it all under control in your head, what needs to happen on the weekend?
Yeah, it's so confusing. Even just hearing that, I'm like, okay, I think I know what we need to do. But I guess, like you said, Mads, if we win, we're there. Like, that's in the back of our mind. Obviously, we are the last game or one of the last games of the round too. So at least we'll know what's happened and where we need to be. But yeah, if we win, we're fine.
Let's talk about the move, Liz, because I think in the off-season everyone was like, oh, not our Lizzie Watson leaving the Vixens. Like, talk about the year that it has been and, you know, has going up there been everything you thought it would be?
Yeah, I can't believe the season's done. Like, it's been such a quick year. I feel like it's absolutely flown by. But I've absolutely loved it here. I think I just needed that refresh in training, in environment, in people, in just everything, that a netball club does offer. And I've said it so many times, I absolutely love the Vixens. They are still my really close friends. I've spent so much of my whole netball life with them down in Victoria. So for me, it was just a personal change, something different. I absolutely love what I've been able to do here at Lightning. I feel like we've got the group to go all the way. Obviously, that is still the focus and still where we want to be. But knowing that there's three really, really tough teams ahead of us too.
Well, also, Lizzie, I mean, for you personally, you continue to excel out there on court. What has been the difference, though, between having a coach in Belinda Reynolds and what she's been able to do and introduce to your game? Because, I mean, from the outside, it looks like you dominate for the Diamonds, you dominated for the Vixens, now you're dominating for the Lightning. What has been the changes that have kept pushing you this season?
Yeah, I think it's been a really nice challenge to have, obviously, that combination with Steph out there on the line. I think we are both love to have the ball in our hand, love to control the attack. And so it was kind of figuring out when and where we can fit that in. I think Lisa's probably really stood out for me this season. She just drives and fits in and just is taking on that centre position in her own. And I know at the start of the season, she was a bit hesitant on where she needs to go. So she's not running into our space, but I said, you go for it. And it's just kind of been able to work the three of us across that transverse line too. So, and then obviously with our shooters, with Cara and Rue back there too, different challenges, different play, the style of play that they both play. But I think it's been really nice to just have that combination keep building.
We know finals could be anyone's game, and at times your attack hand has fired and then your defence hand has fired. It's probably been consistency in having it all function at top notch throughout the whole games. But talk to us, because I think every top three team, or the top three teams would think Lightning is our biggest threat. They're coming for us. Where do you think your biggest kind of strength could be in this finals campaign, obviously making it, to make sure that you are there at the big dance at the end?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is actually having pretty much our whole 10 back now and almost, at full strength. That's probably something at the start of the season that obviously we had lots of injuries and things going on. And it's not just the game day, it's probably the training week as well, that we're not having everybody available to train for full minutes, build those combinations, which obviously over time is hard when you are trying to get new combinations as well. But I think now, everyone's back, we're training well, we're playing well, we're kind of heading in the right direction. So we want to keep going. But like you said, we've got to be able to, attack or have that, balance in attack and defense and both fire. We're really, proud and strong in our 1-point netball and our 2-point netball, something that we've really had to work at as well, which I think, credit to the shooters who are just going in there and backing themselves early in games now, which has been awesome for us. So there's so many different things and you want them all firing at once, but it seems to be every review we have, it's not terrible, but it's not where it needs to be. So it's sort of keep those conversations going that we can try and get everything firing and get that perfect game, which, we haven't had yet.
Can you give us an insight into Ash Irvin and what she's like? Because I think she's really blown the competition away in how dominant she has been, how much ball she can get, but also the limited amount of penalties that she has to her name. It's been really impressive to see. What is she like, when she's training and preparing for games?
Yeah, she's probably one of those unassuming players. She's got these long reach that she can get balls, but you probably didn't expect her to. I think the way is at training, she's just soaking so much up from Courtney and Tara. Obviously, when Courtney was out for a few weeks, it was almost like Ash had her own mentor on the sideline who would just really give her that feedback at quarter time, half time, everything. And then obviously Tara is that very calm head down there in attack and it's kind of nothing phases her. So I think Ash can really lean on that to help her game out. But I think she's just building in confidence. I think you can see the way she goes out there and just plays and has fun. And she's still probably one of those players that is, people aren't really sure on how she's going to go or what she's going to bring each week because she is still so fresh and still developing, but she's doing an incredible job and obviously an incredible person as well to be around.
Well, Liz, it's now your 10th season in this league because it was our 10-year premiership reunion. You were sadly missed, thank you very much. But, 10 years on, tell me, what have you learned about yourself, obviously, as a player and, maybe how your career or your game has evolved? Because we know when you start in your 20s and then, you're getting towards, you're in your 30s, kind of the goals tend to change. What is it that keeps motivating you to obviously continue to rock up and play your absolute best every week?
Yeah, I think it's knowing, I kind of look at it age at the moment it's just a number. You kind of get put in this 30 category and it's like you're old.
which blows my mind that you're in that category now.
I know. But, 30 in sport is, especially female sport, you can be classified as old. So I think for me, I am trying to reach new PBs, even just, something like a jump test, which I've never been great at jumping. I'm getting better at that and actually finding PBs away from the court as well. That is going to help my game and just keep challenging myself. And I think moving here has been a big part of that. I feel like I've been able to get stronger and get fitter in, my physical capabilities off the court, which obviously will help out on the court. But obviously, we want to win premierships. That's sort of why we play too. And that's still a big motivator for me because they are such incredible moments. And that's why we play sport and that's why we want to be in these big games. But I think it's just trying to get better and not just sort of plateauing and cruising through to the end of my career. I really want to be probably at the best when I do stop.
Oh, plenty more to come, and including that game on the weekend. It's going to be a huge matchup between yourself and I'm pretty sure you're going to get Latanya Wilson on you at some stage. We can't wait to see that. Thank you so much for joining us, Lizzie, and all the best for the rest of the games to come.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Well, that was the OMF overview. Kick back and relax with an adjustable bed from Australian design and owned OMF. Watch sport your way. Well, it's now time for the good oil, thanks to Cobram Estate, Australia's extra virgin olive oil. And joining us is SEN Netball commentator Kel Harrison. Welcome, Kel. What have you got for us this week?
Well, this week, unfortunately, there was an unsolicited, racially charged letter sent to Danelle Wallam from a person called Mary in Perth, allegedly in Perth, stating that Mary's disappointment in that Danelle had cost the Australian Diamonds $15 million due to the withdrawal from the funds from Gina Reinhart. Had used words saying that Danelle had been manipulated by radical Aboriginal filth, even going so far as to plagiarise the acknowledgement of country using, British and European elders past and present. It's the timing of the receiving of this letter comes just before NAIDOC week, where we're celebrating our First Nations people within our country. And rightfully so, Danelle had shared this on her social media, stating that she was disgusted and upset with receiving the letter, and that she will always advocate for her people, and had received a lot of social media support from teams, other players, and of course fans.
Oh, it was just absolutely disgusting what she had to, receive that letter first and foremost, what it said, and that she even has to deal with the aftermath of it all. What have you made of the support around Danelle? And do you see it as being a lot different to what we've seen over the last couple of years when things like this happen?
Yeah, so I think there was a media statement come out from Netball Australia and Netball Queensland in support of Danelle, stating zero tolerance of racism and any, all forms of personal abuse, which this does seem very personal towards one player. I mean, we don't hear other things that happen in the background, right? We're not privy to that. If there's been other things and further things, we only know of what has been shared in a public sense. But admiring Danelle for her strength and courage in the face of hate during this time, and obviously, when you publicly call out racism, it is just that step towards stopping that abuse towards the player.
Cal, netball's never been known for these types of headlines, but it just seems like in the last few years, it's sad that we're having to talk about it, but also, as you said, courageous for these people to actually be able to put it out there, because it's the only way that we can educate and be better. What do you hope that clubs continue to do to make sure that this is stamped out throughout our game?
I think education is a big key to it. I think, doing things such as, I was at that Firebirds and Lightning game on the weekend, and you could not help but feel the love and the support that was in that stadium for Danelle. There was some emotional performances, and there was actually some signage in the crowd from fans saying, "We will stand with you, Nellie." So that was actually quite emotional, and seeing Danelle standing there being emotional herself, being supported by her teammates. I think, education. I think Netball Queensland are doing quite a bit in that space, as are other states. Everybody has started down that cultural journey. I think Netball Queensland, they've just released their Innovate RAP, their Reconciliation Action Plan, driven by an incredible woman, Goring, and Tallabong woman, Grace Sarah. She has driven that process. Some initiatives out of that has recently a culturally safe yarning circle has been held with First Nation athletes within the high performance pathway within Queensland. So that means down at the state league level. And I think education needs to continue even further down the line, right down through to club level, to make sure that there are culturally safe places for First Nations athletes coming through. But that yarning circle, also Beryl Friday, Sharon Finnan-White, Danelle Wallam were there facilitating those discussions. And out of that came some proposals and commitments by Netball Queensland.
Well, hugely important, and let's hope the work continues. Also, obviously being up in Queensland, there's a big game happening. It is the Firebirds and the Vixens, the last home game and the last game for Kim Revillion, such an awesome player that she has been for the Firebirds and also the Magpies and Diamonds as well. How do you think that one's going to play out?
It is going to be, I think, a very close one. I think Firebirds, they didn't quite perform. I think all of the emotion of the week possibly could have got to the players last week, and I think that they will actually come out with that fire in their belly. They will want to hopefully finish on a high for Kimmy Rav, who has been such an inspiration to a lot of athletes, within her own circles, but widely. I know that my children have always looked up to her in their netball journeys as well, which has been fantastic. So I think for me, of course, being Queenslander, Firebirds all the way, but can never count out Vixens. Of course, they're a very strong outfit.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. That was the Good Oil, thanks to Cobram Estate, Australia's most awarded extra virgin olive oil, grown, harvested and first cold pressed in northern Victoria. It's now time for Maddie's Minute. Maddie, take it away.
Well, we've been talking so much about finals. I was like, you know what? There is actually going to be a postseason for 4 teams after this round. And what is that going to mean for them? Because from my calculations, and there's not a lot of transparency with clubs, there is in some, obviously, who's on contract, who's not. But I think there's about 30% of the positions within SSN up for grabs. Obviously varying in shooters, mid-courts and defenders. But 4 teams will be having to look at their list going, what do we need to make sure that we're continuing, obviously, into finals in season 2025? And I think what people are unaware of, and what I wanted to talk about today, is those teams can't actually do anything until after the grand final. So they still have to sit there, maybe do a bit of, chess playing and puzzle pieces and think, okay, where can we move? What can we do? But you're actually not allowed to have those conversations until after the grand final, and then assume that everyone will be pouncing on who they need. But one thing to note, Centre Court listeners, is that there is word that there's some people that might be coming over from the Trans-Tasman. There is word that New Zealand are obviously going to open it up. They have seen, obviously, their worst results in international netball over the last couple of years in major tournaments, and I think it has coincided with them stepping away from our league. So I think there'll be some Kiwis come over in 2025, and I also think there'll be some pretty big names.
Ooh, watch this space. I love it, Maddie. And we're going to continue the chat about any whispers we hear, and make sure you also let us know any whispers that you're hearing as well, and we'll try and see if we can confirm or deny some of them. But there is some big games to come, and that, of course, is the round 14 preview. Let's get into it and take a look at the fixture firstly. Firebirds, Vixens, huge one to start off. Then the Fever, Mavericks, another big one. And the Giants and the Swifts. Sadly, this game doesn't really impact the results of the Final Four. But the final game to round out the season 2024 before we get into finals is the Thunderbirds and Lightning. Now, we thought we'd focus on the 3 main games. No offence, Giants and Swifts, but we're going to focus on the other 3 because the Firebirds and Vixens, this is taking place up in Queensland at Nissan Arena. For me, this is a real, I think, bogey game for the Vixens. Vixens lost to the Firebirds this time last season as well. And I think as much as I think they just match up really well on each other. And Vixens, the last couple of games, yes, they got a bit better against the West Coast Fever, but I feel they haven't really sorted out a lot of their attacking play. They obviously missed Monday last week, but they still seem quite hesitant. And now they're going to come up against Bakewell Doran and Carmo and Veve and players that really do attack the ball. And I think the Vixens are either going to rise to the occasion or they could be swamped by the Firebirds, who are got really nothing to play for other than to send off their captain in the best way they possibly can, and also to fight for their spots, exactly what you just said in Maddie's Minute, to fight for their spots in the team next season under a new coach, whoever that might be.
Yep.
The Firebirds have a lot to play for in this game, and I think the Vixens, if they are going to be a real threat come finals, they will need to stamp their authority early on this one.
Because if they do lose, that's 3 in a row heading into finals. That is not the place you want to be at all. But I'm interested to see how it unfolds, and being the first game of the round, I think it might just set the tone as to what might unfold after
all eyes will be on that one, and all eyes will be certainly on this next one, and that is the West Coast Fever are hosting the Mavericks. Mads, how do you think this one's going to play out?
Well, I mean, for the first time all season, we saw Dan Ryan just use only 8 players on the weekend. Usually he uses all 10. He's all about those rotations. He's stuck with a bit more stability. Interesting to see that obviously came with a 1-goal win, but you could see even after the game when we spoke to him, he seemed relief. He was like, you know what, we just needed to get a win, whether it was ugly, pretty, it didn't matter how it all unfolded. A W was all we needed today. I think over there in the West, it'll be really hard for the Mavs, but once again, Mavericks are a team, they've got absolutely nothing to lose. I reckon the rest of the competition will be going, how good would it be for an inaugural team within the competition to make finals? How good would that be? But I think over there, probably in front of maybe 11,000 Green Army fans, I think it's a really hard task. And obviously, you know, Fever can still potentially push for that double chance. So why wouldn't they be absolutely coming out guns blazing?
I'm sure it's going to be an absolute packed house at RAC Arena. And the final game is the Thunderbirds and the Lightning. This one will be in Adelaide at the Entertainment Centre. Now, keep in mind, round 14 last season, exactly like the Firebirds-Vixens game, the Lightning beat the Adelaide Thunderbirds before the Thunderbirds went on to win the premiership. This time the Lightning are even stronger than what we saw last season. So I actually expect this one to be a really close game. If we're ever going to see the best of Lightning, surely it has to come now. We just saw a glimpse of it last week, that's for sure. And they played like they were a championship winning side. As you said to Liz Watson, anything can happen. And this is certainly a team I reckon all the other top 4 sides will be keeping an eye on, because if they can pull it all together in their attack end and defence end all at once, they could be unstoppable.
And really, we know how strong the Thunderbirds are in defence, but the Lightning have the attack end that can absolutely topple them. They've got that smart, obviously, international diamonds and things like that. So I also think, you know, hearing Liz say we've got to continue to push for that too. If Lightning can attack early and really push on the 2-point shot, I mean, Thunderbirds are the worst in the league for that. So if they can actually put on a bit of a deficit, they might get into chase mode, and that might put the T-Birds under the pump.
Oh, we're going to have all eyes on every single game this weekend. It's now time for our social scoop. Now, this week, we have a question from Kiara. Thanks, Kiara, for sending it in. She asked, with the retirement of Kim Rebellion, who do you think will be the next captain of the Firebirds? Now, that's a very interesting question.
Maddie. It is a really interesting question, because they've got nearly 7 spots up for grabs in 2025. So I think, to be honest, I think we'll have to wait and see until their list is actually finalised. You definitely want someone with maybe a little bit of experience, maybe obviously a Dunkley. She's been in that vice captain role for a couple of seasons. Or do you go, you know what, this is a fresh, new look team, new coach? Do you go with some youngsters for longevity to hopefully have them for maybe, you know, 3, 4, 5 years within the league? But yeah, it's a really tough one, because we actually don't know who's potentially staying and who's potentially not going to be there next year. But I think Lara Dunkley's probably in the hot seat for me.
Yeah, or even Veve as well, because we know she's experienced. She's the captain of Tonga. She's obviously been there in the Firebirds lineup before, and now has come back with an amazing resurgence back into the game. I reckon she is a player that potentially could fill that role too. So watch this space. But thank you, Kiara, for sending in that question. And remember, here are our social tags. If you need to, if you want to, send us any of the gossip you're hearing about, any player movements, or any of the chat about some potential New Zealand players who might be coming over. We will love to be able to dissect it all next week. And it's going to be a big week getting into finals. So thank you again to OMF, Watch Sport Your Way, and Cobram Estate Australian Extra Virgin Olive Oil. I'll get that out finally. I'm too excited about round 14 coming up. It's going to be a big one. Thank you again for tuning in to Centre Court, and we'll see you next week.